The sky above the Grand Line did not tear open with thunder. There was no explosion, no roar, no warning. It bent. Midday sunlight warped like liquid glass, clouds stretching unnaturally as if pulled toward an invisible wound. The horizon curved in on itself, colors bleeding into one another, blue into violet, white into something darker, older. The sea below reacted seconds later, waves stuttering as though the world itself hesitated, unsure how to respond. On the deck of the Thousand Sunny, every straw hat felt it at once. Luffy stopped mid-laugh, his grin fading, not into fear, but confusion. His instincts screamed, the same way they did before a powerful enemy revealed themselves. This wasn't like marine ships approaching. This wasn't like a Yonko's presence. This felt foreign. Nami clutched the railing as the log post spun wildly, its needle shaking so violently it nearly snapped. "That's not weather," she said, voice tight. "That's not anything." Usopp swallowed hard, already backing toward cover. I think the sky is broken." Sanji lit a cigarette with a shaking hand, eyes narrowed. "Feels like something's pressing down, like the air's heavier." Zoro said nothing. He had already reached for Wado Ichimonji. A pressure crawled across his skin, not killing intent, not bloodlust, but something deeper. A presence that didn't challenge him directly, yet made every instinct honed by battle scream be ready. His grip tightened, muscles coiling without conscious thought. "This isn't Haki," he muttered, "but it's close enough to be dangerous." Robin stood near the center of the deck, eyes fixed on the distortion overhead. Her expression was unreadable, but her hands were clenched, an unconscious reaction she hadn't shown since facing truths buried in forbidden history. "I've read accounts," she said slowly. "Ancient texts that describe moments when the world itself rejected something that didn't belong. This resembles those passages." Frankie stared upward, jaw slack. "So, you're saying the sky's having an identity crisis?" Robin didn't smile. High above them, the rupture widened, not outward, but inward, folding space as though reality were peeling back a layer it was never meant to expose. For a brief moment, silhouettes flickered within the distortion. Not ships, not weapons. A single shape. Humanoid. Then gravity remembered itself. The figure fell. At first it was only a speck, burning faintly as it broke through the warped sky. The air screamed now, heat trailing behind the descending body as it plummeted straight toward the sea. "Incoming!" Usopp shouted, pointing wildly. The object slammed into the ocean miles ahead with a force that split the waves apart, sending a shockwave rippling across the surface. Water erupted skyward like shattered glass, a column rising and then collapsing back into the sea. Silence followed. Not relief, not calm. Expectation. Luffy leaned forward, eyes wide, not afraid, not cautious, but intensely curious. "That was a person," he said with absolute certainty. Nami spun on him. "You don't know that." "I do," Luffy replied. "I felt him." As the sea settled, a shape emerged amid the steam and broken waves. A body floated briefly, then sank. Zoro exhaled slowly. "If that thing survived the fall, we've got problems." Seconds passed. Then the water exploded again. The figure shot upward, gasping, coughing violently as he broke the surface, arms flailing, hair spiked and wild, orange fabric torn and scorched. He thrashed clumsily, clearly struggling not against enemies, but against the ocean itself. "He's drowning!" Chopper shouted. Luffy was already moving. In a blur, rubber stretched across the waves, and Luffy landed beside the stranger, grabbing him by the collar and yanking him onto the Sunny's deck. The man collapsed instantly, chest heaving, coughing up seawater, eyes squeezed shut in pain. He looked ordinary. No armor, no insignia, no devil fruit markings. Just a muscular man in a tattered orange gi, blue undershirt shredded, boots scorched as if by intense heat. His body bore bruises, fresh, real, earned. And yet, the pressure didn't fade. If anything, it concentrated. Robin's eyes widened slightly as she felt it again, this time not from the sky, but from the man now lying on their deck. This world. The stranger rasped weakly, forcing one eye open. His gaze drifted upward, unfocused. Feels heavy. Zoro's sword was halfway out of its sheath. Sanji stepped protectively in front of Nami and Robin. Luffy crouched beside the man, grinning despite himself. "Hey," he said brightly, "you fell from the sky." The man laughed softly, a tired, confused sound, and then lost consciousness. The sky above the Grand Line slowly returned to normal. But none of the Straw Hats believed for a second that things had truly settled, because whatever had fallen from beyond their world had survived the fall. And the sea itself had rejected him. The first thing he felt was pain. Not the sharp, familiar pain of battle, of broken bones mending themselves, of muscles screaming under strain, but something heavier, duller, like gravity itself had wrapped around his body and refused to let go. The man groaned and tried to sit up. He failed. A wave of dizziness hit him, and he collapsed back against the wooden deck, coughing hard as salt water burned his throat. His lungs ached, his limbs felt sluggish, and, most unsettling of all, his ki wouldn't answer him. That realization snapped his eyes open. For the first time since he could remember, he reached inward and found resistance. Not emptiness, not exhaustion. Something else, like trying to breathe underwater. "Hey," a voice said, bright and unafraid. "You're awake." The man turned his head slowly and saw a boy crouched beside him, wearing a straw hat and the biggest grin he'd ever seen. The boy's eyes sparkled with curiosity, not suspicion, like he'd just found a new kind of adventure. "You fell from the sky," the boy continued, as if explaining something obvious. "That was awesome." The man blinked. Then, despite everything, despite the pain, the confusion, the unfamiliar weight pressing on his body, he smiled. "Heh, really?" he rasped. "Guess I missed the landing." That smile sent a ripple of unease across the deck. Nami stood a few steps back, arms crossed tight, eyes sharp. She'd seen con men, pirates, monsters wearing human skin. This man looked too relaxed for someone who had just survived a fall that should have killed him. "Luffy," she said carefully, "don't get close. We don't know what he is." "Yeah," Usopp added, already holding a slingshot he didn't remember loading. "He could be some kind of sky assassin, or a weird devil fruit guy who pretends to be nice." Sanji exhaled smoke slowly, studying the stranger from head to toe. Torn orange clothes, burn marks, calloused hands, no obvious weapons. But fighters didn't always need them. "There's something off," Sanji muttered. "He's not threatening, but he's not harmless either." The man pushed himself upright with effort, muscles trembling as if they were relearning how to work. He looked around, taking in the ship, the sea, the faces staring back at him. Wonder crossed his expression, not fear. "This isn't Earth," he said slowly, "and it's definitely not otherworld." Robin's eyes narrowed slightly. "You speak as if you've traveled between worlds before," she said. He scratched the back of his head, embarrassed. Yeah, kinda. Long story." Luffy laughed immediately. "Cool. I'm Monkey D. Luffy. Who are you?" "Son Goku," the man replied without hesitation. "Nice to meet you." Something about the way he said it, simple, genuine, unguarded, threw them off more than any threat display could have. Chopper scampered closer, eyes shining with professional concern. "You're hurt. Really hurt. How are you still moving?" Goku looked down at himself, flexed his fingers, frowned. "I should be better by now," he admitted. "Usually this kind of thing clears up fast, but my energy feels tangled." Robin felt it again. That pressure. Not exploding outward. Not flexing dominance. Just there. Old. Deep. Like something that had been restrained for so long it had forgotten how to rest. "Energy?" Nami repeated. "You mean Haki?" Goku tilted his head. No. I don't think so. It's different." Sanji stiffened. Zoro's hand twitched. Luffy, meanwhile, leaned even closer, eyes sparkling. "You're strong, aren't you?" Goku looked up at him, surprised, then laughed. "Yeah," he said honestly. "I guess I am." That was the turning point. Not a threat, not a boast. A simple truth spoken without pride. The air shifted subtly, like the world itself reacting to the admission. Sop swallowed. I don't like how casually he said that. Goku's stomach growled loudly, cutting through the tension. He froze, then laughed again, rubbing his belly. Wow, I'm starving. Whatever that fall was, it burned through everything. Luffy's grin returned instantly. You're hungry? We've got meat. For a brief moment, it almost felt normal. Then Zoro's breath hitched. Without understanding why, without sensing killing intent, without seeing a threat, his instincts screamed louder than they ever had before. His hand moved on its own, blades sliding free, just enough for steel to whisper in the open air. Everyone turned toward him. "Zoro?" Nami asked. Zoro stared at Goku, jaw tight, eyes sharp. "I don't know why," he said slowly, honestly. "But if this guy stands up too fast, I'm cutting him down." Goku looked at the sword, then at Zoro, and his smile faded just a little. Not into fear, into interest. And somewhere deep beneath the sunny, the sea shifted as if aware that something truly dangerous had just learned where it was. The deck of the Thousand Sunny was quiet in a way that made everyone uneasy. Not peaceful, watchful. Goku stood near the mast, feet planted firmly against the wood, eyes closed, breathing slow and controlled. His posture was relaxed, but the straw hats could tell he was concentrating with everything he had. "This usually helps," he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. He exhaled and reached inward. In his own world, this part was instinct. Kai flowed like breath, like blood. It answered thought, emotion, will. Even injured, even exhausted, it listened. Here, it resisted. A faint pressure rippled outward from Goku's body, barely visible, like heat distortion above sun-baked stone. The air trembled for a half second, then snapped back into place as if rejecting him outright. Goku's eyes flew open. He staggered back a step, coughing sharply. What the? He clenched his fist, staring at it. That should have worked. Luffy tilted his head. Worked how? Boosted my energy, Goku said, frowning. Nothing big, just enough to stabilize myself. Zoro scoffed from the side, arms crossed. Looked like the world told you no. Goku laughed weakly. Yeah, that's new. Robin watched him closely, fingers steepled beneath her chin. You're not drawing power from an external source, she said. Not like a devil fruit, and not exactly like Haki either. Haki, Goku echoed. She nodded. Spiritual willpower, manifested through intent, discipline, and belief. Observation allows one to sense others. Armament allows the body to harden beyond its limits. Goku's eyes lit up with the interest despite his condition. Oh, that sounds kinda like ki control, but sideways. Sideways? Usopp repeated. Goku demonstrated by tightening his stance, muscles flexing, not explosively, but deliberately. Ki comes from life force. It flows through the body and beyond it. But Haki sounds like forcing your will onto reality. Zoro raised an eyebrow. That's one way to put it. Can you use it? Luffy asked. Goku tried to answer confidently. I think so. He closed his eyes again, mimicking what Robin described, focusing not inward, but outward, on presence, on awareness. For a split second, something clicked. The sounds of the ship sharpened, the creak of wood, the rhythm of the waves, the heartbeats around him, especially Luffy's, wild and unrestrained. Then it vanished. Goku stumbled again, sweat beading on his forehead. Nope, he said, breathing hard. That slipped right through me. Sanji frowned. You couldn't maintain it. Yeah, Goku admitted. It's like the rules are different here. My power's not gone, but it doesn't have the same permissions. Robin felt a chill at that word. Permissions. This world may not recognize ki as a valid force, she said quietly. So it pushes back. Goku looked almost excited. That's kind of amazing, he said. It means I can't just overpower things. Nami stared at him. You say that like it's a good thing. He scratched his cheek sheepishly. I get stronger when I have to adapt. Zoro stepped forward then, planting his feet opposite Goku. Try something simpler. No energy tricks, just strength. Goku grinned. Now you're speaking my language. They squared off, not as enemies, but as warriors testing boundaries. Zoro didn't draw his swords. Goku didn't power up. They clashed. Wood cracked beneath their feet as fists met forearms. Goku was fast, but not overwhelming. Zoro was solid, but felt pressure he couldn't quite name. Each strike landed with weight, not shockwaves. Real. Earned. Goku was breathing harder than he should have been. And he noticed, mid-exchange, he laughed. Wow, I'm actually getting tired. Zoro pulled back, eyes narrowed. Not annoyed, but impressed. You're holding back. Always, Goku replied honestly. But even so, this is the weakest I've felt in a long time. That admission carried weight. Not fear, not panic, limit. For the first time in years, Goku felt constrained, not by an enemy, but by the world itself. And somewhere far away, a marine observation station lit up with alarms. Dindin Mushi screeched as readings spiked wildly, needles slamming against dials never meant to measure this kind of presence. "What is that?" an officer demanded. The screen showed a single point on the Grand Line, pulsing faintly, then stabilizing. "Unknown energy signature," another Marine whispered. "Not devil fruit. Not Haki." The room went silent. "Notify headquarters," the officer said grimly. "Something new has entered the world." And on the deck of the Sunny, Goku rolled his shoulders, smiling faintly, unaware that the moment he struggled, he had been noticed. The sea went still before the cannon fire came. Not calm, tense. Even Luffy felt it, the way the air tightened just before danger arrived. The Thousand Sunny cut through the waves when the shadows appeared on the horizon. Gray hulls, disciplined formation, sails bearing the mark of the world government. Marines. "Ah, figures," Nami muttered, already calculating distances, angles, escape routes. They don't waste time. A massive warship pulled ahead of the others, its presence heavier than the rest. From its deck stood a single figure at the bow, coat draped over broad shoulders, arms crossed as if the sea itself were beneath his notice. Zoro clicked his tongue. "That's not a regular officer." Robin nodded slowly. Vice Admiral rank, at least. The man stepped forward, voice carrying effortlessly across the water without a Dindin Mushi. "Straw Hat Luffy," he called. "By order of the world government, your ship is to stop immediately. You are harboring an unidentified anomaly." Goku blinked. "Is that me?" Sanji shot him a look. "Congratulations. You've been here less than a day." Luffy cracked his knuckles, grin returning. "We're not stopping." The Vice Admiral smiled thinly. "So be it." He leapt. Not fell, leapt. The distance between ship and warship vanished as the Marine slammed onto the Sunny's deck, wood splintering under his boots. The pressure of his landing hit like a shockwave, forcing everyone to brace. This was a man who had survived decades of war. His eyes locked onto Goku immediately. "You," the Vice Admiral said, "you don't belong in this world." Goku stepped forward before anyone else could move. "Hey," he said politely. "Sorry about that. I didn't mean to cause trouble." Zoro's eyes widened slightly. "Oi!" Too late. The Vice Admiral moved first, fist snapping forward, coated in hardened armament Haki. The punch didn't glow. It didn't scream. It hit. Goku raised his arm on instinct. The impact rattled through his bones, sending him skidding backward across the deck, boots carving grooves in the wood. Pain flared, sharp, honest, undeniable. Goku laughed breathlessly as he caught himself. Whoa, that one got through. The Vice Admiral didn't wait. He pressed the attack, strikes precise and relentless, each blow carrying weight beyond muscle. Goku blocked, dodged, redirected, pure martial skill on display. But every contact punished him. "This world doesn't reward sloppy fundamentals," the Marine growled, driving an elbow into Goku's ribs. "You rely on power too much." Goku flew back, slamming into the railing. He dropped to one knee, coughing. Luffy bristled. "Hey, that's my friend." Goku raised a hand without looking back. "It's okay. Let me try something." He stood slowly, rolling his shoulders. His breathing was heavier now. Sweat ran down his temple. No key flare, no transformation, just focus. The Vice Admiral charged again, fist descending like a hammer. This time, Goku didn't meet it head on. He twisted, stepping inside the strike, redirecting momentum, learning. The blow grazed his shoulder instead of crushing his guard. Adaptable, the Vice Admiral noted, spinning into a kick reinforced by Haki. But not enough. The kick landed squarely in Goku's side. A sharp crack echoed across the deck. Goku hit the ground hard. Silence followed. Brief. Stunned. Chopper gasped. Nami clenched her fists. Zoro leaned forward, hand on his swords, teeth grinding. Goku lay still for a moment. Then he pushed himself up, grimacing and smiling. Blood ran from the corner of his mouth. He wiped it away with the back of his hand, stared at the red smear, then looked back up at the Vice Admiral with eyes burning brighter than before. "Oh," Goku said softly. "I get it now." The Vice Admiral frowned. Get what? Goku's stance shifted, not stronger, not louder, but sharper. His movements became economical, purposeful. "This world doesn't care how much energy you have," he said. "It cares how you use what you're allowed." He stepped forward. The air changed. Not explosively, but decisively. The Vice Admiral braced, instincts screaming. Goku smiled wider, blood still on his lip. And for the first time since falling from the sky, he was excited to fight. The deck groaned beneath their feet. Not from destruction, but from restraint. Goku stood across from the Vice Admiral, blood drying at the corner of his mouth, breath steadying as something deeper stirred beneath his skin. The air around him felt tight, compressed, like it was being asked to tolerate something it was never designed to hold. Luffy felt it instantly. His grin faded, eyes sharpening. "Whoa, hey," he muttered. "That's different." The Vice Admiral felt it too. His armament Haki thickened instinctively, coating his forearms like black iron. Years of combat screamed a single warning into his bones. Do not let him finish whatever he's about to do. Goku inhaled slowly. In his chest, Ki responded, not freely, not cleanly, but enough. It pressed outward, testing the rules of this world, brushing against invisible limits that pushed back hard. The sunny creaked. The sea around the ship rippled unnaturally. This was the edge. The point where he could force it. For a heartbeat, Goku considered it. One step forward. One release. The Vice Admiral would fall. Maybe not dead, but broken. The ships behind him would scatter. The fight would end. But as that power rose, something else reached him. Not an attack. A presence. He felt the ship beneath his feet. The people behind him. The ocean stretching endlessly beyond the horizon. Alive. Fragile. Connected. This world didn't fracture neatly under force. It echoed. Goku's eyes widened. If he pushed harder, it wouldn't just be the Marine who paid the price. "Don't," Robin whispered, sensing it without understanding why. Goku clenched his fists, veins standing out along his arms. The pressure peaked, then stopped. He let the power fall back in. The air relaxed. The sea stilled. The Vice Admiral staggered half a step, confused, not from a blow, but from the sudden absence of something catastrophic. "You hesitated," the Marine said cautiously. Goku exhaled and straightened. "Yeah." The Vice Admiral studied him for a long moment, then laughed. A short, incredulous sound. You could have ended it. Maybe, Goku replied. But winning like that would have cost too much. Zoro frowned. Cost who? Everyone, Goku said simply. The Marine's expression hardened, but something else flickered there too. Recognition. He stepped back, adjusting his coat. You're not like the others, he said. That restraint will either save this world or doom you in it. He turned sharply, leaping back toward his ship. This encounter will be reported. He called over his shoulder. All of it. The Marine fleet withdrew, sails turning, cannons silent, but the tension they left behind lingered like smoke after fire. Only once the ships vanished did Luffy finally speak. Why didn't you finish him? He asked, not angry, just genuinely puzzled. You totally could have. Goku sat down hard on a crate, rubbing the back of his neck. Where I'm from, I fight strong people. Empty spaces, battlefields that can handle it. He looked out at the sea. This place feels full, like every hit carries further than it should. Nami crossed her arms. So you're saying you held back for our sake? For everyone's, Goku corrected. Power isn't just about who you beat. It's about what breaks when you miss. That landed heavier than any punch. Luffy stared at him for a long moment, then grinned again, but it was softer this time. Thoughtful. Huh, that's kind of cool. Sanji exhaled smoke slowly. We're incredibly dangerous. Robin closed her book quietly. Either way, the world has noticed. Far away, aboard the retreating Marine warship, the Vice Admiral stood before Adenden Mushi, voice low and precise. Confirmed, he reported. The anomaly possesses power beyond known classifications. Exhibits restraint, inconsistent with pirates or revolutionaries. Pause. Yes, he added. He chose not to win. The signal cut. Across the Grand Line, whispers began to move faster than ships. A man who fell from the sky. A fighter who bled and smiled. A power that could have ended a battle and didn't. By nightfall, rumors would reach pirate dens, Marine headquarters, and shadowed rooms where kings and monsters listened closely. And somewhere on the open sea, the Straw Hats sailed on, unaware that the cost of Goku holding back had already begun to spread across the world. Far from the Grand Line, beyond storms and pirate flags, beyond rumor and chaos, there existed a room where the sea did not matter. A room where the world was decided quietly. Deep within Marijois, Adenden Mushi trembled as it replayed the Vice Admiral's report. The voice echoed through a chamber of cold stone and long shadows, each word measured, stripped of emotion. Subject exhibits combat capability, exceeding Vice Admiral level physical benchmarks. No devil fruit detected. No confirmed Haki usage. Unknown energy system observed. Subject demonstrated voluntary restraint despite clear tactical advantage. Silence followed. Not shock. Calculation. Cypherpole agents stood along the walls, masked and motionless. CP0 at the front, the highest authority beneath the throne that was never spoken of. One of them finally broke the silence. No devil fruit, and no Haki. No observable manifestation, another agent confirmed. We've cross-referenced every known combat discipline. This power does not align with the Rokushiki, Fishman karate, electro, Lunarian traits, or any recorded ancient weapon signatures. A pause. It doesn't belong. That was when the Gorosei spoke. 5 figures seated in authority, older than most nations. Men whose voices carried the weight of erased centuries. Everything in this world, one of them said slowly, falls into a system. Another continued, pirates chase freedom. Marines enforce order. Revolutionaries disrupt balance. Devil fruits grant power with a price. Haki emerges from will and lineage. The third leaned forward slightly. This man fits none of these. A fourth Gorosei's cane tapped once against the floor. Tap. That, he said, is unacceptable. The Denden Mushi clicked again, displaying still images pulled from surveillance snails. Blurred frames of Goku standing on the Sunny's deck. No aura, no transformation. Just a man, smiling, bleeding. He fought a vice admiral evenly while wounded, CP0 reported, and withdrew power voluntarily. That restraint, the first Gorosei replied, is not mercy, it is choice. The word hung heavy. Choice meant independence. Independence meant instability. What of the straw hat? Another asked. Monkey D. Luffy appears to have formed an immediate bond, CP0 said. The anomaly has not declared allegiance, but his proximity alone alters the equation. At the mention of the name, the room cooled further. Another variable connected to the will of D, one Gorosei muttered, as if we needed more. One of the elders narrowed his eyes. If he is not bound by our systems, then he cannot be governed by our deterrence. No bounty will restrain him, another added. No classification will limit him. A long silence followed. Then the oldest voice spoke. Then he must be classified before the world decides what he is. CP0 inclined their head. Interrogation? Containment, the Gorosei corrected. Capture, if possible. Study, quietly. And if not, the Gorosei did not hesitate. Escalate. Far away, the thousand sunnies sailed to beneath open skies, unaware of the shift occurring above the world. Luffy laughed at something Usopp said. Nami argued with Sanji. Goku sat at the bow, legs dangling over the edge, watching the sea with a thoughtful expression. He flexed his hand again, feeling the resistance, the way the world pressed back when he reached too far. Huh, he murmured. This place really doesn't like shortcuts. Robin watched him from the shade, unease settling deeper in her chest. They'll come for you, she said quietly. Not because you attacked them, but because you don't fit. Goku looked back at her, surprised. Is that how it works here? Robin nodded once. The system fears what it cannot label. Goku smiled, but it was slower this time. More careful. Guess I'll have to learn the rules, he said, before I break them. In Marijois, a sealed document was slid across a black table. No public seal, no announcement, no fanfare, just an order. Target, unidentified combat entity. Status, capture priority. Silent. Authorization, Gorosei. A single stamp pressed down. Approved. And somewhere in the vast machinery of the world government, gears began to turn. Not loudly, not violently, but with terrifying certainty. Because the moment the world decided Goku was a problem, it stopped asking what he was, and started deciding what to do with him. The new world was quiet. Not calm, but listening. On a sun-bleached island, far from marine patrol routes. The red-hair pirates lounged like men who feared nothing. Laughter rolled across the shore. Bottles clinked. Dice hit the sand. It was the kind of ease only legends could afford. Then Shanks stopped smiling. The cup in his hand froze halfway to his lips. His gaze lifted, not to the horizon, but beyond it, as if the world itself had whispered a secret only he could hear. Huh. Ben Beckman noticed immediately. He always did. What is it? Shanks didn't answer at first. His conqueror's haki spread outward, not violently, not in challenge, but in awareness. The air around him tightened. The laughter behind him softened as his crew instinctively felt the shift. It's not hostility, Shanks said slowly. That's what's bothering me. Yasopp frowned. Then what are you sensing? Shanks closed his eye. There was something out there. Not a king asserting dominance. Not a monster thirsting for battle. Not even the chaotic hunger of a rising pirate. This presence felt contained, like a blade sheathed too carefully. I can't place it, Shanks admitted. It's strong, stronger than most, but it's not pushing back. Beckman's cigarette paused between his fingers. Everything strong pushes back. That's the rule, Shanks agreed, which means whatever this is, isn't playing by it. He exhaled slowly. Conqueror's haki was supposed to be unmistakable. It bent wills, crushed the weak, declared dominance without words. Observation, haki sensed intent. Armament hardened resolve. This presence didn't declare anything. It existed. And somehow, that unsettled him more than any Yonko ever had. Could it be an ancient weapon? Yasopp asked. Shanks shook his head. No, those feel like scars. This feels like a traveler. A ripple of quiet followed that word. Travelers changed eras. Beckman studied Shanks carefully. You're thinking about the balance. I am, Shanks replied. This world is already on a knife's edge. The old powers are shifting. The new ones are rushing in without understanding what they're breaking. He opened his eye, gaze sharp now. And then something like this shows up. Not tied to the past. Not born from the system. He laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. That's dangerous. Back on the Thousand Sunny, Goku stood at the bow again, arms folded behind his head, staring into the endless blue. He felt better than before, still constrained, still heavy, but adapting. The sea breeze felt good. He had no idea someone was watching him from across the world. Shanks tilted his head slightly, as if listening to a distant echo. He's close to Straw Hat, he said. That figures. Beckman's eyes narrowed. Another magnet for trouble. Or change, Shanks countered. A long silence followed. You're not worried he'll side with the government? Beckman asked. Shanks snorted. No, men like that don't fit in cages. Then why are you uneasy? Shanks considered that. Because he doesn't feel like a pirate, he said at last. He doesn't feel like a marine, and he doesn't feel like a king. He stood, cloak shifting in the wind. He feels like someone who hasn't decided what this world means to him yet. That decision, Shanks knew, could tip everything. Across the sea, Robin closed her book, eyes drifting to Goku's back. Do you feel that? She asked quietly. Zoro grunted. Yeah, like we're being looked at. Goku blinked. Huh? I don't sense anything. That made Zoro frown deeper. On the island, Shanks placed his cup down, smile returning, but sharper now, edged with resolve. I've seen enough eras to know when one's about to change, he said, and I don't like guessing games. He turned to his crew. We're moving. Beckman raised an eyebrow. To where? Shanks grinned, red hair catching the sunlight. Toward the anomaly. The red hair pirates began to prepare, laughter replaced by purpose, sails already catching the wind. Somewhere on the open sea, fate adjusted its course. Because when even legends felt uneasy, they didn't wait to be proven right. The Thousand Sunny had become a moving dojo, not by design, but by necessity. Morning sun reflected off the sea as Goku stood barefoot on the deck, sweat already rolling down his back. His breathing was steady, controlled, but his expression carried a familiar frustration, the kind that came not from defeat, but from misunderstanding. Zoro circled him slowly, wooden practice sword resting on his shoulder. You're still fighting like the world's going to bend for you, Zoro said bluntly. Goku laughed, rubbing the back of his neck. Hard habit to break. Break it, Zoro replied. Or this sea will. Luffy sat cross-legged nearby, chewing on meat and watching like it was the most entertaining thing in the world. Just punch him again, he offered helpfully. Zoro ignored him. Again, the swordsman said. He moved without warning. Fast, direct, no wasted motion. The wooden blade came down in a clean arc. Goku blocked with his forearm, but the impact jolted straight through him, rattling his bones. He slid back a step. See? Zoro snapped. You're bracing after the strike. You're still thinking in bursts. Goku exhaled, nodding. In my world, power comes in waves. Here, it's more like pressure. Zoro smirked faintly. Now you're learning the language. They clashed again. This time, Goku didn't flare ki. He tightened his core, grounded his stance, and moved with intent rather than force. The blow still hurt, but it didn't throw him off balance. Zoro paused mid-motion. Huh. Robin watched from the rail, arms folded, eyes sharp. He's compressing instead of expanding, she murmured. He's adapting his energy inward. Sanji leaned beside her. That sounds dangerous. It is, Robin replied. But it's also smart. Goku adjusted his footing, muscles burning. This kind of control felt alien, like trying to write with his non-dominant hand. Ki wanted to move, to flow freely. But here, it had to behave, to listen. Zoro attacked again, faster now, testing him. Goku parried, stepped inside, redirected, his movements becoming tighter, more efficient, but still imperfect. Zoro's blade cracked against Goku's ribs. Goku grunted, dropping to one knee. Shh, Zoro clicked his tongue. You hesitate. Goku looked up, breathing hard. Yeah, I'm afraid of pushing too much. That fear will get you killed, Zoro said flatly. Restraint doesn't mean doubt. The words hit harder than the strike. Goku stood slowly. Where I'm from, he said, holding back keeps people safe. And where you are now, Zoro replied, eyes locked on him. Holding back means you don't trust yourself. Silence stretched between them. Then Goku smiled. Not wide, not playful, honest. Thanks. They resumed. This time, Goku stopped thinking about ki as power. He treated it like weight. Every movement became deliberate, every breath measured. He let the energy settle into his muscles instead of erupting outward. His strikes didn't get stronger, but they landed cleaner. Zoro felt it. The next clash forced him back half a step. His grin widened. There it is. Luffy jumped to his feet, eyes sparkling. Whoa, that felt different. Goku blinked. You felt it? Yeah, Luffy said, like you weren't loud anymore. Goku frowned thoughtfully. Quiet power. They clashed once more, and then something strange happened. Mid-swing, Goku knew where Zoro's blade would be. Not guessed. Knew. His body moved before thought, slipping just out of range as the wooden sword cut through empty air. Goku's eyes widened as the sensation expanded outward. Heartbeat. Breath. Intent. For a split second, the world sharpened. He felt Luffy's excitement, Zoro's focus, Robin's curiosity, the rhythm of the ship, the pulse of the sea. Then it vanished. Goku staggered, catching himself on one knee, heart racing. Zoro stared. What the hell was that? Goku looked up slowly, stunned. I saw you move, before you did. Robin's eyes widened. That's dangerously close to observation Haki. Goku laughed softly, half disbelieving. Guess the world finally let me borrow the grammar. But far away, beyond the sunny, beyond the sea, something noticed the ripple. And this time, it wasn't curious. It was watching. The night sky over the Grand Line was deep indigo, pierced by stars that shone like distant flames. The Thousand Sunny lay anchored near a quiet island, its crew exhausted from a day of sparring, learning, and cautious exploration. Goku sat cross-legged on the bow, eyes closed, still replaying the rhythm of Zoro's strikes and Luffy's chaotic energy. He was unaware that he was no longer alone. Somewhere between worlds, a shadow moved with precision that bent reality to silence. Cloaked in black, hooded, gliding across voids unseen, the figure's presence was subtle yet unmistakable. A predator who had tracked energies others couldn't perceive. Every step was calculated, every motion deliberate. This was no ordinary traveler. This was a shinobi, a warrior whose craft straddled life, death, and the unseen forces that tied them together. The figure crouched atop a rocky precipice overlooking the ocean, hands tracing complex mudras that glowed faintly before disappearing. Its eyes, sharp and black as obsidian, scanned the horizon, locking onto a signature that didn't belong. It was unfamiliar, raw, yet orderly. The energy did not scream dominance. It whispered potential, power restrained by thought and discipline, yet capable of calamity. Ki, the figure muttered, voice almost a hiss, tasting the word before fully understanding it. It resonates like chakra, but unbound, raw, dangerous, unregistered, unclassifiable. The shinobi's training allowed perception of energy flow, the currents of chakra, the weight of intent. What they felt in Goku was similar, yet foreign. It defied the rules, bending the logic that the shinobi had mastered for decades. And that, above all, was a danger. Forces that could not be categorized were the ones that destabilized everything. A thought sharpened. Goku's arrival here was no accident. The energy signature vibrated with traces of interdimensional displacement. Signatures not of nature, but of intention. Someone, or something had sent him. Someone had marked him. The shinobi's cloak flickered with movement, blending into the shadows. They closed their eyes, and in the silence between heartbeats, they reached for the threads of destiny that tied worlds together. The energy pulsed faintly, like a candle in the wind, yet it had a weight that pulled at the very spine of reality. Interesting, the figure whispered, almost to themselves. A warrior who does not belong, yet thrives. Ki is strong, but discipline is unrefined. The variables are too many. This anomaly could either stabilize or destroy this world if left unchecked. Their fingers traced invisible lines in the air, mapping trajectories and predicting movement, not of ships or tides, but of intent. Goku, they realized, had already begun adapting, learning the language of this world in ways even the shinobi could not fully anticipate. The sound of waves lapping against the hull of distant ships reached them, yet it carried no meaning. Only the energy mattered. Goku's pulse, the echo of every breath, the tension in his muscles, and the flicker of power that had escaped briefly during his training. It all formed a map, and the shinobi had memorized it. Finally, the figures stood, shoulders straightening, the night wind tugging at their cloak. From the folds of their armor, they withdrew a communication device, ancient, silent, yet capable of speaking across dimensions. They whispered into it. Target located. Key signature identified in the Grand Line. Strength surpasses initial assessment. Discipline untrained, but potential immense. His presence is destabilizing local energy balances. A pause, a flicker of hesitation in the shadows. Then, approval requested for engagement. No answer came immediately, only the silent hum of power resonating through the device. The shinobi's eyes narrowed. They understood the consequences of delay. If Goku continued unchecked, if he learned too quickly, the world itself would begin to shift. Balance would tip in ways that even the world government could not predict. Finally, the voice responded, not through words, but a command that carried authority across realms. It was cold, precise, and absolute. Proceed, but discretion. The world must not see him coming. The shinobi nodded once, bowing slightly to an unseen master. Every movement was calculated. Every shadow they slipped into would be used as a path, every step invisible to those who relied on sight alone. And then, as if part of the night itself, they disappeared. On the sunny, Goku opened his eyes again, stretching his shoulders. The energy of the ocean, the rhythm of the waves, even the laughter of Luffy and the muted concern of Zoro, all of it swirled around him. He didn't sense the presence watching him yet, but something subtle shifted in the air, brushing against his awareness, like a warning he couldn't quite name. Robin noticed it first. She glanced at the horizon, her expression tense. "Something's approaching, not from our world," she whispered. Zoro grunted, tightening his grip on his sword. "I don't like the feel of it," he said simply. Goku tilted his head, curious. "You feel it too?" The faint shimmer of an unseen presence brushed past him, and for the first time since arriving in this world, he sensed someone who could match him, even if only slightly. Someone disciplined, precise, and dangerous. The shinobi's shadow moved closer across the dimensional threads that bound worlds together, leaving whispers of inevitability in their wake. And far away, to an unseen master cloaked in darkness, a single message arrived. "He is here. Prepare the contingency." The Grand Line held its breath. Because Goku's arrival was no accident, and the world he had landed in was about to face an enemy who had been waiting for him. The Grand Line was alive, not with storms nor with waves, but with whispers that carried faster than any ship. The name of the anomaly spread like sparks across dry grass, igniting curiosity, fear, and obsession in equal measure. In a hidden stronghold far from any known port, Dragon stood atop a cliff, coat flaring in the wind, observation Haki stretching outward. He didn't need reports. He felt it, the pulse of an unknown energy cutting across the seas. He had never felt anything like it in his life. Not a devil fruit, not Haki, not the power of kings or warlords. This one is different, Dragon murmured, voice low, almost reverent. His eyes, sharp and calculating, followed the movement of the thousand sunny below. Luffy's laughter carried faintly on the wind, but it wasn't Luffy that mattered. It was the man beside him, Goku. Dragon folded his arms, assessing. This anomaly wasn't a threat in the traditional sense. It didn't seek conquest, didn't crave dominion. And yet the world's currents, political, military, and chaotic, began to shift at his mere presence. Balance, Dragon said quietly. It begins to crack. Far to the north, in the shadows of a storm-darkened island, Blackbeard paced slowly, a sinister grin curling across his face. Word had reached him via intercepted communications, marine reports, rumors among pirate crews, sightings from the New World. A fighter had appeared who defied classification, who could match even the most seasoned warriors without devil fruit or Haki in the expected way. Blackbeard's eyes glinted with hunger. Power outside the world's rules, he muttered. And yet, restrained. He clenched his fist, feeling the weight of opportunity. The world hasn't shifted yet, but it will, and I will be the one to control the quake. Blackbeard's obsession was immediate. Unlike other pirates, whose greed was for treasure or territory, he craved dominance over the flow of fate itself. And this anomaly, this man, represented a key piece he could manipulate. Meanwhile, across the seas, the Marines were unsettled. Vice admirals and admirals convened in urgency. Intelligence flowed, but none of it fit the standard reports. Goku had no devil fruit. His ki could not be measured. His restraint was tactical, but dangerous. To the Marines, an unclassifiable threat was the worst kind. Is it a weapon? A devil fruit we don't know? One admiral asked. No, said another, voice tight with concern. It's a man, but stronger than any we've cataloged. It's the kind of anomaly that changes power structures by itself. Even the Revolutionary Army had caught wind. Sabo watched the news with furrowed brows, understanding immediately what Dragon already sensed. A wild card had entered the global chessboard. The world's equilibrium, the fragile balance between pirate, marine, and revolutionary, was now unsettled. Back on the Thousand Sunny, Goku stretched on a deck, his movements fluid, adapting to the rhythm of this world. He was unaware of the tendrils of observation reaching toward him from multiple directions, each containing intent, caution, and curiosity. He didn't yet realize that a storm of attention had formed, and that the currents of fate were bending in response to his simple existence. Luffy noticed him, grinning. You're thinking again, aren't you? Yeah, Goku admitted, eyes scanning the horizon. This world's complicated. Complicated is fun, Luffy said with his trademark grin, bouncing to his feet. I like it. But even Luffy's excitement was dwarfed by the unseen forces stirring across the seas. Dragon's gaze never wavered. He extended his haki subtly, probing not for attack, but for understanding. The potential was limitless, but untrained. Dangerous, yes, but possibly a turning point for the world's future. Blackbeard's eyes, however, glimmered with anticipation. He turned to his crew, voice low and deadly. Prepare. The anomaly must be approached. If the world shifts because of him, I will be ready to take what falls. He tapped the barrel of his pistol lightly against his chest, smiling wider. He doesn't know it yet, but I do, and I will not wait for him to grow stronger before I strike. The Grand Line, the New World, the seas of pirates and marines alike, all held their breath. One man had arrived, and with him, the currents of fate began to twist. No island, no fleet, no hidden corner of the world could ignore the tremor he carried. And somewhere, in the shadows beyond sight, Blackbeard made the first deliberate move. The pieces were in motion, and the world would never be the same. The sun dipped low over the horizon, painting the Grand Line in streaks of gold and crimson. The sea glimmered, deceptively calm, while the Thousand Sunny floated like a silent sentinel amidst the waves. Goku sat cross-legged on the deck, head bowed, eyes closed, not in meditation, but in thought. The rhythm of the sea had always been soothing, but today it carried something heavier. The stakes were no longer simple. This world wasn't a battlefield to test strength. It wasn't a tournament. It was messy, unpredictable, alive. It demanded more than power. It demanded judgment. Robin approached quietly, her book tucked under her arm. She didn't speak immediately, letting the quiet between them stretch. When she did, her voice was gentle, but firm. You know, she began, every time you've acted, people have noticed. Marines, pirates, revolutionaries, even civilians. They see the power you carry, and they interpret it however they want. Goku opened one eye, glancing at her. I just want to help. Robin shook her head slowly. It's not that simple. Strength here isn't a solution. It's a statement. Every time you intervene, you shift balances that have existed for decades. Sometimes for better, sometimes for worse. Goku frowned. His instinct was always to step in, to protect, to fight injustice. But here, every action seemed to ripple outward, creating consequences he couldn't anticipate. He thought back to the Vice Admiral. He had restrained himself, not because he feared the fight, but because the collateral could have been catastrophic. Yet even that restraint had caught the attention of the world government, the Marines, and powers far beyond his comprehension. He had inadvertently drawn eyes from Dragon, Blackbeard, and a shadowed shinobi from another dimension. And yet, Goku said quietly, I can't just do nothing. Not when people are suffering. Robin studied him, eyes narrowing slightly. Sometimes doing nothing is the hardest choice. It doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're aware of the consequences. You can't save everyone, Goku. Not here. The wind picked up, rustling his hair. Goku's gaze drifted toward the sea, toward the horizon, where the sky met the water in a perfect line. He felt the pulse of the world, the currents of conflict, the tension between pirates and marines, the whispered power of revolutionaries plotting in the shadows. I get it, he said slowly, voice tinged with frustration. but it doesn't feel right to just sit back and watch. Right and wrong aren't always the same as what's necessary, Robin replied. You might stop one fight today, only to spark 3 more tomorrow. This world punishes those who overstep, even with the best intentions. Goku's fists clenched. He had trained his whole life to rise to any challenge, to push his limits, to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. And yet here, every move carried unseen weight. Each action risked igniting conflicts that weren't his to start or resolve. The crew noticed his tension. Luffy, oblivious to the nuance, bounced up beside him. Don't worry, Goku. If there's trouble, we'll handle it together. Goku gave a small smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. He appreciated Luffy's faith, but this wasn't the kind of battle that could be handled with straightforward courage. Not yet. Zoro leaned against the railing, quietly observing. Sometimes, he muttered, choosing not to strike is harder than drawing your sword. Goku looked at him, understanding for the first time the weight of restraint. His power could end conflicts. It could destroy enemies. It could reshape this world entirely. But wielding it recklessly could leave scars far deeper than any opponent's wound. Robin took a seat beside him. The question you need to ask yourself isn't whether you can fight. It's whether you should. And if so, how? This isn't about winning. It's about surviving. And making the world survive with you. Goku nodded slowly, the truth of her words settling like a stone in his chest. He had faced countless enemies, countless challenges, but never a world so alive, so volatile, that his very existence could destabilize everything around him. He exhaled, the weight of his choices pressing down. The pull to act, the instinct to fight, tugged at him constantly. And yet, for the first time, he realized that restraint itself could be a form of strength. The sun dipped lower, shadows stretching long across the deck. The ocean's pulse felt heavier, as though the world itself were holding its breath. Goku's voice was quiet, almost a whisper to himself. Then, I won't act. Not yet. Robin nodded, though her eyes were wary. Good. Watch, learn, and wait. The world will tell you when it needs you. But until then, tread carefully. He closed his eyes, letting the wind wash over him, feeling the sea, the sky, and the weight of lives unknown pressing against his consciousness. Somewhere, far beyond the horizon, unseen eyes shifted, tracking him. Powers that could reshape the world waited patiently, sensing hesitation, sensing restraint, sensing opportunity. Goku had chosen not to act. Yet. But the world had already begun to move without him, and the consequences of inaction were only beginning to unfold. Night had fallen over a cluster of islands in the New World, but the darkness carried no peace. Lightning flickered in the distance, illuminating jagged cliffs and turbulent waves below. Somewhere in that chaos, Blackbeard watched, smiling in a way that promised calamity. He had spent days tracking the anomaly, the man who fell from the sky, whose power defied classification, whose restraint frustrated even the most patient observers. Blackbeard didn't need to face him directly to understand one truth. Goku was dangerous, not just in strength, but in unpredictability. And unpredictability was a weapon Blackbeard intended to exploit. From the shadows, his crew moved like predators, silent, strategic, disciplined. Every cannon placement, every whispered order, every ship maneuver had been calculated to provoke Goku, to test him, to draw out not raw power, but decision, hesitation, and the cost of action. On the Thousand Sunny, Goku was unaware of the storm approaching. He trained still, moving through Zoro's strikes and Luffy's antics. But tonight, a chill passed through him, not from the wind, but from instinct. The sea seemed heavier, thicker, as if something beyond comprehension pressed against reality itself. Then, the first signal came, a distant flare of light, unnatural and jagged, followed by tremors in the ocean. The crew looked toward the horizon, unease rippling through them. Blackbeard's ships emerged from the shadows like sharks circling prey, their sails black as midnight, the Jolly Roger fluttering with malice. The night air was pierced by cannon fire, not aimed to sink, but to harass, to fragment, to draw out reaction. Goku didn't hesitate. He leapt from the deck, hands raised, a faint glow of ki flickering around him. But he didn't explode outward, didn't obliterate ships instantly. He moved with precision, redirecting blasts, deflecting hull-busting cannonballs, and neutralizing projectiles without harming the crew below. Yet Blackbeard's strategy was subtle. His crew wasn't trying to defeat Goku. They were trying to measure him, to see how he responded under pressure, to test his limits without giving him freedom to unleash. Each encounter was a puzzle. Goku's fists met the enemy's attacks, parries and blocks stretching longer than necessary. He adapted quickly, but Blackbeard's men adjusted in response, forcing him to expend effort, time, and focus. Zoro watched, eyes narrowed. This isn't just fighting, it's baiting him. Luffy grinned, adrenaline surging. Finally, some action! But even he noticed the unnatural organization in the enemy's maneuvers. Too precise to be random. Blackbeard's voice carried faintly over the wind, calm, almost amused. Come on, little star. Show me what you can do. Goku's eyes narrowed. He could sense the challenge, the mind behind the chaos. But he also felt the weight of every move. This world, Robin had said, didn't reward power alone. It punished ignorance, exploited hesitation. And now he was learning the lesson firsthand. He struck again, faster, stronger, yet each blow revealed a calculated counter from Blackbeard's men. Ships swerved to avoid his attacks. New obstacles arose, and Goku's usual approach, strike hard, strike fast, met a wall built not of steel, but of anticipation. Hours passed in this tense dance. The crew exhausted themselves, the sea churned, and yet Goku still pressed forward, learning the limits of what restraint could accomplish. He adapted his ki subtly into the movements, integrating observation-like awareness, slipping through attacks with foresight, but never overreaching. And still the laughter carried across the night. Blackbeard, standing on his flagship, arms crossed, observed from afar, not a scratch on him, not a flicker of fear. The chaos he had orchestrated had revealed much, but his quarry had not yet revealed everything. Interesting, he murmured, voice echoing across the waters. The boy's fast, clever, disciplined. He smiled, teeth flashing. But strength alone doesn't frighten me. Hesitation, doubt, morality, that's where weakness festers. He leaned forward, eyes glinting with malice. And now, we see if he has enough control to survive the real test. Goku paused mid-strike, sensing the subtle shift. The enemy wasn't attacking recklessly anymore. Every movement, every maneuver carried intent. Not to harm, not to dominate, but to reveal weaknesses. The wind carried Blackbeard's laughter again, soft and mocking, weaving through the cannon smoke. Goku's muscles tensed, eyes narrowing. For the first time, he felt that his actions could cost more than just himself. The crew of the Sunny looked on, unease growing. Robin's expression was grave. He's playing with him, testing him in ways we don't fully understand, she whispered. And across the water, the shadow of the world's newest threat smiled without fear. Blackbeard remained unscathed, untouched, watching, calculating. And the true battle, the one that would test not Goku's strength, but his restraint, his morality, and his ability to act without destroying everything around him, was only beginning. The night trembled with tension. Because darkness does not fear power, it exploits hesitation. And Blackbeard was laughing. The air was thick, heavier than any storm Goku had ever faced. The sea below the Thousand Sunny churned violently, as if sensing the tension in the skies above. Clouds twisted unnaturally, forming jagged shapes that reflected the turbulence of the moment. This was no ordinary confrontation. This was judgment. A figure dropped silently onto the deck, barely disturbing the air. A shadow in motion, impossible to track with the eye. Goku opened his eyes, sensing it immediately, but the instinctual thrill of battle was tempered by caution. This presence was precise, controlled, deadly, and it carried the weight of worlds. The shinobi stood, cloaked in darkness, mask obscuring every facial feature, save for a pair of piercing eyes. Their hands were folded briefly in a ritual, tracing subtle symbols in the air, then opening, as if readying themselves for the inevitable. "You," the figure began, voice sharp, measured, echoing with authority that seemed to vibrate through the deck itself. "You have crossed into my world and countless others. Your arrival has destabilized dimensions, disrupted natural flows, and drawn attention from powers that should not exist here." Goku tilted his head, eyebrows raised, a faint smile forming despite the tension. "I didn't mean to cause trouble," he said. "I just fell here. I'm trying to understand this world." The shinobi's eyes narrowed. "Understanding is irrelevant if your actions bring imbalance. You fight because it is instinct. You protect because it is habit. But habit without knowledge can destroy what you claim to defend." Luffy and Zoro shifted behind him, senses on high alert. Robin's hand hovered over her book, reading the movements of the shadow with careful calculation. Even Luffy felt the weight of authority radiating from this figure. Goku nodded slowly, recognizing the truth in the words. He had faced enemies countless times, but this wasn't just an opponent. This was a moral and cosmic judge. His power, unbound and unfamiliar in this world, was a threat simply by existing. And that realization, one he had never faced in his lifetime of battle, sent a rare twinge of doubt through him. "I don't want to destroy anything," Goku admitted, voice steady despite the storm building around them. "I just want to protect the people here." The shinobi's hand snapped forward, fingers forming a complex seal. "Your protection is irrelevant if it collapses the fabric of reality. You act like a hero, but you are a cosmic anomaly, a wandering force that the balance cannot forgive." Goku clenched his fists. His mind raced, not for attack, but for understanding. This wasn't a fight about strength. This was a battle of principles, of perspective. The shinobi saw the universe differently, as interwoven dimensions with fragile rules. Goku had always thought in terms of limits he could overcome. Here, limits were woven into reality itself. You fight without consequence where you come from, the shinobi continued. Here, every movement has resonance. Every battle alters paths you cannot yet see. Do you know what it is to risk not only a world, but worlds? And yet, you persist blindly. Goku's expression hardened, not with anger, but determination. Then teach me. Show me. I'll learn if it's the right way. The shinobi paused, tilting their head, as if weighing sincerity against inevitability. Learning may not be enough. Action may be required. And action is dangerous. A gust of wind ripped across the deck, carrying with it the scent of ozone and tension. The symbols the shinobi had traced glimmered faintly, hovering like threads ready to snap. You leave me no choice, the figure said. If you refuse to see the consequences of your power, I must enforce balance myself. Goku's eyes narrowed. His instincts screamed, fight or retreat, but he realized this wasn't about a brawl. It was about restraint, about decision, about understanding the scales he had yet to comprehend. I'll listen, Goku said firmly. I'll prove I can protect without destroying. The shinobi's hand shifted, forming a series of intricate seals in midair, each glowing with a faint, otherworldly light. You may believe your strength is your ally, but the law of balance does not bend for good intentions. Lightning crackled above, illuminating the figure's mask for a brief instant. Eyes burning with the weight of millennia of knowledge and the cold precision of an executor. Prepare yourself, the shinobi said, voice like steel wrapped in shadow. This is no fight of fists. This is a reckoning, and if you cannot adapt, you will be sealed. The air shimmered with energy. The symbols of the sealing technique hovered, intricate and precise, linking to the deck, the ship, the ocean, and even the sky above. It was not just a physical attack. It was a law, a force attempting to rewrite Goku's presence, to contain it before it could unravel the world. Goku's hands clenched, ki sparking faintly around him. He had fought gods, monsters, and tyrants, but never a force that judged the existence of his very being. Robin stepped forward, voice steady. This is the moment of choice. Strength alone won't save him. Knowledge, restraint, and understanding will. The shinobi's shadow elongated, energy coiling like a serpent ready to strike. And in that instant, the deck of the Thousand Sunny seemed to hold its breath. Because Goku was about to face the ultimate question: hero or cosmic mistake? The shinobi's hands glowed brighter, threads of the sealing technique stretching outward, and the world waited. The ocean stretched endlessly, a mirror of twilight hues melting into the horizon. On the deck of the Thousand Sunny, Goku stood, hands at his sides, eyes scanning the water with quiet intensity. The wind tousled his hair, carrying the scent of salt and distant thunder. It was a world in motion, currents shifting, sails catching unseen breezes, and beneath it all, the pulse of life and conflict thrummed like a heartbeat. For the first time since his arrival, Goku wasn't reacting instinctively. He wasn't rushing to punch, to deflect, to dominate. Instead, he breathed deliberately, feeling the rhythm of the world, of the ship, and of the crew. Every movement of the Sunny, every sway of the waves, every slight tension in Luffy's posture was a data point. Observation, restraint, discipline, these were not words that he had trained in, yet they were now shaping the contours of his power. Luffy bounded past him, grinning widely, oblivious to the weight pressing down on the Saiyan. You're thinking too much, Goku. Fighting's fun when you feel it, not when you measure it. Goku chuckled softly, eyes still focused. It's not that simple here, he admitted. I need to fight. Carefully. Not just strong, but right. Luffy stopped, tilting his head. Right? There's no right or wrong in a fight. You just do what you want. And that, strangely, struck something deep within Goku. Freedom, not structure, not pure power, was what Luffy radiated. Luffy's confidence, unbound and chaotic, was a different kind of strength. It didn't seek perfection. It simply existed. And in that existence, it reshaped the world around it. Goku closed his eyes, letting the lesson sink in. The limits he had felt, the restrictions imposed by this world's physics, its haki, and even its moral framework, were not shackles. They were boundaries that demanded creativity, understanding, and evolution. Restraint was not weakness. It was refinement. It was choice. He moved slowly at first, testing the flow of ki through his body, adjusting it, tempering it. Instead of flaring outward like a storm, his energy shifted inward, circulating along precise channels, resonating with the subtle currents of Haki-like discipline he was learning from observation. His movements flowed with purpose, controlled yet unpredictable. Every strike, every step, every block was measured, but never hesitant. Zoro watched from the side, arms crossed, sensing the change. So he can hold back without losing strength, he muttered. Interesting. Robin, ever analytical, noted the fusion of technique. He's blending Kai with awareness, she murmured. Not just raw power. He's evolving it into something compatible with this world. Goku's fists glowed faintly, energy restrained and humming like a living instrument. He practiced strikes and dodges, each movement fluid, yet restrained. Each blast controlled, precise, and efficient. It was as though he was learning to speak the language of this world through the motion of his body. Sanji, observing from the railing, smirked. Looks like he's finally learning discipline and style. But it wasn't just technique. It was philosophy. Goku's understanding had shifted. Strength wasn't about destroying opponents. Strength was choosing when to unleash it, and when to hold back. It was the courage to act, or not act, knowing the consequences. The wind picked up, carrying a subtle vibration through the air, faint yet insistent. Goku's eyes snapped open. The subtle pulse wasn't local. It was distant, vast, and growing. A war was approaching. Not a skirmish, not a duel, but a collision of forces spanning seas, islands, and unseen horizons. Pirates were mobilizing. Marines were regrouping. Shadowed figures from other dimensions had been tracking him, plotting their moves. And at the center of it all, his restraint, his choice, and his understanding would be tested. Goku's jaw tightened. He could feel it in his chest, in his core, in the subtle thrum of ki stretching across the oceans. He wasn't just preparing for a fight. He was preparing to shape the outcome of a conflict that hadn't even begun. Luffy clapped him on the shoulder, excitement gleaming in his eyes. Finally, something big's coming. Can't wait to see how you handle it. Goku smiled faintly, eyes narrowing as the horizon darkened, clouds twisting unnaturally in the distance. I'll be ready, he said softly. But his mind raced, calculating, feeling, preparing. Restraint had sharpened him, but now it would be tested under the harshest conditions yet. The sea shivered, And far off in the distance, a ripple of energy, not human, not fully tangible, swept through the waters, announcing that the coming storm would be unlike anything this world had ever known. Goku inhaled deeply, energy humming quietly beneath his skin. Limits were not weakness. Limits were evolution. And evolution, he realized, would have to meet war. Because beyond the horizon, a tide of conflict was already moving towards him, and nothing would be the same once it arrived. The sky above the Grand Line burned with an unnatural red glow, streaked with black smoke from distant islands. The sea churned violently beneath, waves crashing against each other like armies colliding before the first strike had even fallen. On the horizon, fleets of world government warships appeared, lined up like steel teeth poised to devour the seas themselves. It was no longer whispers, no longer subtle intelligence. The world had decided to act openly. Cypherpole, the admirals, and even the Gorosei had sanctioned a level of force unprecedented in living memory. This was a buster call, yet unlike any buster call ever executed before. It wasn't just an island they aimed to destroy. It was a demonstration to the world, a purge intended to warn all who dared stand outside the system. On the Thousand Sunny, tension gripped the crew. Luffy paced, excitement tempered by instinctive caution. "That's a lot of ships," he muttered, eyes wide. "Too many ships." Zoro's hand rested on the hilt of his sword, muscles taut. "They're not testing us. They're trying to burn everything down before we can react." Nami stared at the maps, her hands shaking slightly as currents of intelligence and sea charts blurred together. They know Goku's here. They know the stakes. And they're going all in. Goku stood at the bow, eyes fixed on the approaching fleet. His aura flickered faintly, ki coiling around him like a living thing. He had trained himself to adapt, to temper power with restraint, to move in harmony with this world's rules. But this was something beyond the controlled exercises of observation and Haki-like discipline. This was war in its rawest, most indiscriminate form. "Neutrality isn't an option anymore," Robin said softly, standing beside him. Her calm voice carried the weight of reason over the chaos. "They're not coming to negotiate. They're coming to annihilate. If we do nothing, everything, including innocent lives, will be destroyed." Sanji's jaw clenched. "We can't run. We can't hide. They're coming for everyone here." Luffy's grin hardened, a mix of adrenaline and resolve. "Then we fight. We don't wait for them to choose for us." But even Luffy's confidence couldn't mask the magnitude of the threat. The world government's forces stretched as far as the eye could see, their intentions clear. A display of absolute power meant to terrify and dominate. Every cannon glinted in the dying light. Every sail was taut with purpose. The crews moved like a single organism, coordinated and merciless. Goku's mind worked quickly. He could feel the scales of the world tipping, the subtle currents of Haki and Ki intermingling across the approaching armada. Each ship carried the weight of intent, every admiral's presence magnifying the threat. He knew he could face them with brute force, but doing so risked the very balance he had fought so hard to respect. He glanced at Luffy. "Are you ready for this?" Luffy's smile was wide, eyes blazing with determination. "Always. But you're the one who's going to tip the scales." Goku exhaled, letting the wind whip around him. He had spent weeks learning to measure restraint as strength. to bend ki into precision, to harmonize with this world rather than dominate it blindly. Now that training would be tested on the grandest stage imaginable. The first cannons fired, not at the Sunny, but into the ocean around it, testing, measuring, and sending a warning. The explosions erupted like thunder, spray and flame mixing in a violent ballet. The Sunny rocked violently, and the crew struggled to maintain footing. Goku's aura flared gently, his body readying, not for destruction, but for survival and protection. He could see every angle, every trajectory, every intention in the unfolding battlefield. His mind raced faster than ever, calculating, not just force, but consequence. This isn't just about fighting, he muttered to himself. It's about keeping everyone alive, without breaking the world in the process. Robin's voice cut through his thoughts. Remember, Goku, you can fight, but you can also choose how to fight. Your restraint is your greatest weapon here. The horizon shimmered, Admiral-class figures appearing on the lead ships, radiating Haki so powerful that the ocean itself seemed to bend beneath their presence. The world government had committed its best to ensure total annihilation. And yet, in the center of the storm of impending destruction, Goku stepped forward. Not recklessly, not with raw power alone, but with calm certainty, ki humming in measured harmony with his body, every movement prepared to protect, to endure, and to confront the impossible. The crew of the Thousand Sunny watched, hearts pounding, knowing that the next moments would determine whether survival or devastation would sweep across the seas. Goku's eyes narrowed. The wind carried the roar of the approaching fleet, the hiss of cannon fire, the tension of a world forced to choose sides. And then, with deliberate steps, he moved toward the bow, aura glowing faintly but resolutely, standing as the center of the storm. The price of standing still had arrived, and Goku was about to pay it, or reshape it entirely. The horizon burned with fire and steel as the world government fleet closed in. Cannonballs screamed through the air, their arcs slicing across the crimson sky, detonating against waves with explosive force. Admirals, their presence radiating raw haki, stood at the forefront of the armada, each one a storm of calculated power and lethal intent. Every movement of their ships, every command, carried the weight of decades of combat experience and authority. This was the Grand Line's Judgment Day, and at its center, Goku stood. He could feel the tension in the air like an invisible pressure pressing down. The weight of expectation, of responsibility, of lives teetering on the edge of annihilation. It all bore down on him. He exhaled slowly, focusing inward, letting his ki pulse calmly, coiling around him without spilling outward. The first strike came almost instantly. Admiral-class Haki clashed against ki as Goku intercepted cannon fire mid-air, moving faster than the eye could follow. The force rattled through him, but he adapted fluidly, absorbing the rhythm of the assault and redirecting it with precision. Every blow, every counter, was calculated, measured, not reckless, not showy, but decisive. Zoro, watching from the deck, muttered under his breath. Finally, he's showing them how a true warrior adapts. Luffy bounded alongside Goku, flinging attacks with chaotic abandon, drawing fire and attention away from his ally. Goku's eyes scanned continuously, reading trajectories, measuring output, predicting intention. He struck only where necessary, avoiding unnecessary destruction, conserving energy while neutralizing lethal threats. The admirals, Borsalino-like speed, Akainu-level force, Kizaru-esque unpredictability, responded immediately. They weren't simply testing him, they were pushing, probing, looking for weaknesses. Every parry, every dodge, every counterstrike became a lesson in survival, forcing Goku to expand the limits of restraint and technique simultaneously. Even Blackbeard's shadowed presence lingered on the periphery, watching with that unnerving amusement. Chaos had a new variable now, a disciplined force capable of restraint, yet deadly enough to bend the battlefield to its will. Not just strength, Goku muttered to himself between attacks, sweat and ki mingling across his skin. Timing, precision, adaptation. Each movement was a statement. This was survival, not domination. Every adversary he faced was testing not just his power, but his judgment. A misstep could mean the loss of lives he had sworn to protect, a collapse of fragile alliances, a catastrophic chain reaction across the seas. The sky flashed as Goku unleashed a controlled burst of energy, blasting a line of cannon boats without tipping the balance of the fleet. Debris scattered, yet his aura remained tempered, flowing like a river contained within a channel, powerful but restrained. The admirals adjusted, countering, testing new strategies, forcing Goku to evolve mid-battle. Nami shouted from the deck, directing the crew, but even she sensed the extraordinary scale of this clash. The Thousand Sunny rocked under the blasts and shockwaves, yet Goku's presence anchored them. His aura radiated calm focus, a focal point amidst the chaos that steadied even the hearts of those watching. Hours, or what felt like hours, passed in this relentless exchange. Energy burned, ki flared, Haki collided, and yet Goku's control never wavered. Each punch, each dodge, each calculated release of power was a testament to the evolution he had embraced. Restraint as strength, observation as armor, responsibility as a weapon. And then the inevitable came. Even a warrior tempered by decades of combat, trained under the harshest trials, with ki flowing like a river of controlled fire, could not endure without limit. The attacks, the constant energy output, the need to balance every strike with consequence, it began to take its toll. Muscles burned, breath came raggedly, and yet Goku did not falter in his focus. The admirals noticed it first, a slight hesitation, a fraction of a delay, almost imperceptible. Not weakness, but strain. Energy, after all, is finite, even for a Saiyan. Goku's vision flickered as he landed on the deck, every movement measured, controlled, but now tinged with exhaustion. The storm around him continued unabated. Cannon fire, Haki bursts, and the weight of an entire fleet pressing down like a living wall. Luffy's grin faltered for a moment. "Goku, are you okay?" Goku looked up at him, sweat and energy crackling around his form. His smile was faint, but genuine. "I'm fine. I just need a moment, but I'll get back up." The crew understood without words. They had seen power before, but they had never seen the fusion of strength, discipline, and moral responsibility manifest on this scale. Yet the world outside the Sunny was relentless. The admirals and the fleet were unyielding. The very seas seemed to tremble with the weight of their combined Haki and military might. Goku's restraint had preserved lives, but it also stretched him to the edge of human, and Saiyan, endurance. And in that instant, as he collapsed to one knee, ki flickering faintly around his body, the crew held their breath. Because even the strongest warrior, tempered through experience, could not stand indefinitely against a force designed to obliterate everything. Goku had fought brilliantly, with discipline, precision, and heart. But exhaustion had found him, and the storm, far from relenting, pressed closer. The Grand Line never slept, but tonight it seemed alive in a new way, breathing, trembling, reacting. Word of the battle on the Thousand Sunny spread faster than any wind could carry. Ships from distant islands paused mid-sail, pirates lowering sails to catch in a glimpse, marines hesitating as reports of the Saiyan's confrontation with admirals reached them. Even civilians along the coasts sensed the tremors, their villages quieted by the unseen force at work above the waves. Goku had become more than a fighter. He had become a catalyst, a force whose presence rippled beyond mere strength, whose restraint and resolve resonated with every living soul witnessing it, whether firsthand or through the whispers of the seas. He did not belong to the world government. He did not belong to the pirates. He belonged only to his own principles, and that made him dangerous in ways no cannon, no Haki, no devil fruit could predict. Far above the chaos, Dragon watched silently. From atop his floating ship, the revolutionary's eyes narrowed, scanning the horizon where Goku's figure flickered amidst flashes of ki and smoke. He had seen many signs of upheaval, rebellions, insurgencies, the rise and fall of tyrants, but never one so pure, so unbound by ideology, that it could influence hearts without taking sides. Interesting, Dragon muttered to himself, voice almost lost in the roar of the winds. This one. He could change everything without even trying. Back on the Thousand Sunny, the Straw Hats observed the world reacting to Goku. Luffy's grin was fierce, unbroken by exhaustion or the overwhelming scale of the incoming threat. "Everyone's watching, right?" he said, fists clenched. "They're seeing someone fight for what's right, not for power or glory." Robin nodded, her expression calculating, yet impressed. He doesn't just fight, he inspires. People see him act, and they understand, at least on some level, that strength can be used responsibly. That intention matters as much as power. Goku's chest rose and fell with heavy, measured breaths. His aura flickered faintly, ki coiling around him with precision, controlled yet powerful. He didn't need to dominate to be influential. Every strike, every block, every measured movement carried a message. Restraint is not weakness. Morality is not indecision. Courage is not reckless abandon. The effect was immediate. Small pirate crews, previously in hiding, began to rally behind the legend forming in whispers. Marines hesitated, questioning the orders that demanded total annihilation of forces now caught in a gray area between enemy and ally. Civilians watched from coastal cliffs and port towns, their eyes reflecting awe, fear, and hope simultaneously. Even Blackbeard, perched atop the shadows of a jagged cliff far from the open sea, noticed the change. His smile widened, teeth glinting like steel. Here was a force that could inspire both fear and loyalty without allegiance, a chaotic variable in a world structured by alliances, laws, and devil fruits. "This is worse than I imagined," Blackbeard muttered, voice low and deliberate. "A weapon that can't be controlled, a force the world will follow blindly, not for orders, but for belief." The atmosphere shifted. Ships altered course, not out of fear of destruction alone, but out of fascination, curiosity, and the recognition that Goku was rewriting the rules. Admirals who had expected immediate submission were being challenged, not through outright defiance, but through the raw presence of someone acting according to personal principles, unbound by the old hierarchies. On the Sunny's deck, Goku looked toward the horizon, sensing more than he could see. The war was approaching, armies converging, Every faction now aware that this battle was not just about territory or dominance. It was about ideology, about choice, about what it meant to wield strength responsibly. Luffy's fist shot into the air, a symbol of defiance, freedom, and trust. No one's controlling him, he shouted. He's fighting for everyone, and that makes him unstoppable. Goku allowed himself a small, tired smile, energy coiling faintly around his fists. He understood now. His role wasn't to command, it was to demonstrate, to act as a beacon, a force without allegiance, capable of turning the tide through principle rather than order. And yet, from the shadows beyond the fleet, from the deep recesses of a world built on fear and greed, a plan was already in motion. Blackbeard's ships moved silently, deliberately, threading through chaos with deadly precision. He had watched Goku's every action, learned the rhythm, studied the restraint. A voice, low and unyielding, seemed to whisper across the waves. You inspire too much, Saiyan, and that is unacceptable. From beyond the horizon, Blackbeard struck. The sea erupted violently as the first calculated chaos of his attack hit. Waves towered, cannons fired, and the night screamed in a symphony of destruction. The moment was precise, deliberate, and terrifying. The Straw Hats and Goku braced, energy and resolve coiling like springs ready to release. Every eye fixed on the oncoming threat, every heart racing, knowing that the next moments would determine not just survival, but the balance of influence across the seas. Because a force without allegiance, the enemy of no one, was about to meet the most cunning, relentless threat the world had ever known. And Blackbeard's shadow loomed, smiling. The storm above the Grand Line had become a tempest of clashing wills. Cannon fire, ki blasts, Haki radiance, and shadowed chakra pulses converged into a maelstrom that seemed to tear the very sky apart. On one side, Blackbeard's malevolent laughter carried across the waves, his forces coordinated with ruthless precision. On another, a rogue shinobi, his presence barely tethered to this world, manifested like a specter, energy twisting unnaturally, eyes glowing with otherworldly intent. The Thousand Sunny rode the edge of chaos, sails whipping, masts straining as Goku stood at the bow, aura flaring like a contained star. Exhaustion weighed heavily on him, his body still pulsing from the battles that had come before, yet his spirit burned brighter than ever. He understood the stakes clearly. Victory was not measured by destruction, but by restraint. The lives of countless innocents, the fragile alliances among pirates and marines, and the balance of the world itself depended on the choices he would make in the coming minutes. Blackbeard's presence was overwhelming, a dark gravity pulling at everything around him. His attacks weren't just powerful, they were designed to destabilize, to provoke fear and force Goku into the same cycle that had consumed so many before him. Strike first. Destroy without hesitation. Embrace dominance above conscience. The shinobi, in contrast, sought containment. To seal Goku as a threat to the multiverse itself. Their objectives collided in chaos, creating an unpredictable battlefield that warped the very rules Goku had been learning to navigate. Goku stepped forward, aura steady, voice calm yet carrying across the chaos. I'm not here to kill, he declared. I'm not here to destroy. There's always another way. Blackbeard laughed, a low, rumbling sound that echoed across the sea. Another way? Ha! In this world, mercy is weakness. Power is the only law, and you are standing in the middle of it. The shinobi's eyes narrowed, chakra pulsing like a coiling serpent. And yet, he whispered, this anomaly, this scion, refuses to follow the cycle. He fights, but not to dominate. He resists even to defend. That is, unpredictable. The clash began anew. Ki met Haki, and chakra confronted energy, not bound by any system known to the One Piece world. Every strike was deliberate, calculated, yet unrelenting. Goku dodged, countered, and struck with controlled precision, using the lessons of restraint he had learned from the Straw Hats. His punches didn't aim to kill. They aimed to disarm, to neutralize, to protect. Each movement radiated intent, teaching even the most hardened observers that strength could exist without cruelty. Blackbeard swung his powers like a hammer, creating massive shockwaves that tore through the ocean and shattered the air. The shinobi attempted sealing techniques, chakra spiraling toward Goku in intricate patterns meant to bind him. Yet Goku adapted, using ki and observation to anticipate, absorb, and redirect their assaults. Every attack deflected, every enemy maneuver countered, added to a growing tension. Here was a fighter who refused to perpetuate the cycle of violence, yet whose power was undeniable. The Straw Hats watched, tense, knowing this was the culmination of everything. Luffy's fist tightened. He's showing them. He's showing everyone a different way. Robin's eyes glinted with awe. It's strategy, restraint, morality, fused into combat. He's forcing the world to respond, not react. The battle escalated further as Blackbeard combined his darkness with the shinobi's sealing techniques, creating chaos that threatened to engulf the Sunny entirely. Goku moved between both forces like a living bridge, absorbing, redirecting, and neutralizing attacks without killing, without destroying, without yielding. He could see the shock on Blackbeard's face. This was no ordinary opponent. This was a warrior who would not succumb to fear or rage. And then, a moment of clarity. As Goku leapt into the center of the maelstrom, ki radiating outward like a protective halo, the clash of power reached a crescendo. Blackbeard's shadows recoiled. The shinobi's seals faltered. Every strike Goku had made, every block, every decision, converged into one undeniable fact. Destruction was not inevitable. Mercy, discipline, and restraint had changed the equation entirely. For an instant, silence seemed to fall across the battlefield. Waves stilled, wind slowed, and the horizon trembled as if the world itself paused to witness what had been accomplished. But then, a ripple in reality. Faint at first, then expanding. The dimensional rift that had brought Goku here began to pulse violently, reality itself bending and stretching at its edges. It opened like a wound across the sky, threatening to swallow the storm whole. Goku's eyes widened. Exhaustion gripped him, but focus sharpened. The fight was not over, not in the sense the world expected. This rift was both a danger and a question. Where would it lead? And what would come through once it did? Blackbeard's laughter cut across the sound of tearing air. The shinobi's gaze followed the pulsating anomaly. Worry etched in his features. And Goku, standing resolute amidst the chaos he refused to exploit, felt the first true test of his philosophy. Could mercy, discipline, and restraint survive a world designed to punish them? The answer hung in the sky as the dimensional rift widened, ominous, unpredictable, and alive with possibility. And through it, something new was coming. The storm had passed, leaving the Grand Line cloaked in silence, broken only by the gentle creaking of the Thousand Sunny and the distant crash of waves against distant shores. The aftermath of the battle lingered in the air like a heavy fog. Smoke from shattered ships, the faint smell of scorched wood and ozone, and an unshakable sense that the world had been fundamentally altered. Pirate crews, marines, and civilians alike were left reeling. News spread like wildfire. The scion who had appeared from nowhere had faced admirals, Blackbeard, and even the rogue shinobi, and survived, restrained yet undefeated. Even more astounding, he had chosen not to kill, not to dominate, and yet the ripple of his actions had been felt across every corner of the seas. Authority had been challenged, fear had shifted, and ideology itself had begun to bend. On the deck of the Sunny, the Straw Hats gathered, their expressions a mix of awe, relief, and contemplation. Luffy leaned against the railing, grin wide but subdued, as he stared at the horizon. "He's different from anyone I've ever met," he said softly. "Strong, yeah, but he's not just strong. He changes how you think about fighting, about being free." Zoro sheathed his swords with a slow, deliberate motion, eyes dark and thoughtful. Power like that. It isn't about winning battles. It's about making people see what's possible. Even someone like Blackbeard can't just crush it all. Robin folded her arms, eyes scanning the distant sea. Goku didn't just defeat enemies. He shifted the balance. Nations, pirates, revolutionaries, they're all reconsidering what strength means, and more importantly, what responsibility means. Sanji kicked a stray rope pacing lightly. It's terrifying, in a way. Someone that powerful, but not reckless, not greedy, just principled. The world doesn't know how to react. Goku sat nearby, aura faint but steady, energy slowly returning to him as he observed the reactions around him. There was a calm satisfaction in his posture, but also a quiet melancholy. He had made an impact, yes, but the world was not his to fix. He had guided, inspired, and restrained, but he had not ruled, and that distinction weighed on him. Nami approached, voice low but sincere. "You've done something no one else could. You didn't take over. You didn't destroy. You taught, even without meaning to." Goku looked at her and smiled, tired but genuine. That's all anyone can do in a world like this. Show what's possible. People choose their own paths. I just hope they choose wisely. From the distant horizon, faint signs of movement reminded everyone that nothing had truly ended. Ships limped away, smoke rising from battle-damaged vessels. Admirals, though defeated in part, had retreated strategically, regrouping and reconsidering the rules they had long lived by. Blackbeard's shadowy grin lingered across the sea like a promise. Chaos wasn't finished, but a new precedent had been set. Dragon's observation from afar remained steady, but even he felt a ripple in the currents of power. One man, unattached to kingdoms, fleets, or governments, had rewritten the logic of influence. He didn't lead armies. He didn't conquer islands. He inspired. And in a world built on dominance, that was a weapon far more destabilizing than any cannon or devil fruit. The Straw Hats felt it too, the subtle shift in their own understanding of strength and freedom. Luffy's grin returned, brighter now, but tempered with thoughtfulness. "I don't know if the world's ready for someone like him, but I want to be ready." Zoro let out a low hum, half a smile tugging at his lips. He doesn't just fight. He teaches. And it's scary because you realize even if you're strong, you're still learning. Always learning. Robin's gaze drifted back to the fading horizon, a sense of reverence in her voice. Legends aren't always conquerors. Sometimes they are the ones who show the world that there's another way. Goku rose slowly, stretching, energy radiating faintly, a serene glow against the twilight. He turned toward the Straw Hats, eyes calm, knowing that the time to depart was approaching. His mission, his influence, had been imparted, but he did not belong to this world forever. The crew watched him, hearts tight, not with fear, but with understanding. They had been witnesses to something extraordinary, a power tempered by restraint, a presence that did not dominate, and a philosophy that challenged the very foundations of their world. Goku's voice carried across the deck, soft yet resolute. I've done all I can here. The rest is up to you. Live freely. Fight responsibly. Protect what matters. A quiet pause hung over the sunny. Even the wind seemed to wait, holding its breath. Then, with deliberate steps toward the edge of the deck, Goku prepared to leave, aura coiling gently around him. The seas themselves seemed to recognize the moment. A warrior had come, and now, as all things must, he would depart. And behind him, a world that had already begun to change, slowly but irreversibly, waited for the next chapter. The question lingered in every heart aboard the Sunny and across the scattered seas. When someone like Goku arrives, who truly dictates the fate of the world, and as he stepped forward, preparing to vanish back to the dimensional currents that had brought him here, the air hummed with the knowledge that nothing, no empire, no pirate, no revolutionary, would ever be the same. The horizon glimmered with the first light of dawn, painting the sea in gold and crimson, a world reborn from the chaos of the night before. The battle was over, yet its echoes lingered like a distant drumbeat, the ripples of change traveling through oceans, islands, and hearts alike. On the deck of the Thousand Sunny, the Straw Hats watched as a faint figure hovered at the edge of the horizon, aura glowing softly against the morning sky. Goku stood there, calm and composed despite the exhaustion etched into his frame. His energy, once a storm, now flowed like a quiet river, controlled, serene, and poised. The wind tugged at his hair, carrying the salt of the sea and the faint scent of distant worlds. He turned once, a gentle smile breaking across his face, the kind of smile that carried both warmth and mystery. Luffy's grin mirrored it instantly, wide, unrestrained, filled with awe and determination. "I'll see you again," he shouted, voice strong and clear, echoing across the waves. "Somewhere beyond the sea, we'll fight together, or just eat together." Goku chuckled softly, the sound carrying across the water, a mixture of amusement and reassurance. "I'll be waiting," he replied. "Just don't rush ahead recklessly, okay? Learn, grow, and enjoy the journey." The Straw Hats felt a strange mix of inspiration and melancholy. Zoro's hand hovered near his sword, not out of readiness, but out of respect. "He's something else," Zoro muttered, voice low. "Not just a fighter. He leaves a mark you can't erase." Robin observed quietly, her eyes reflective. Legends aren't always the ones who conquer. Some are the ones who pass through, leaving stories, questions, and hope in their wake. Goku is one of them. Even Sanji, ever dramatic, felt the weight of the moment. He didn't just fight. He taught us what it means to truly live as warriors and protectors. And he did it without killing, without ruling, just guiding. The seas themselves seemed to acknowledge his presence. Waves shimmered in rhythm with the faint glow of his ki, the horizon bending slightly with the energy still lingering from battles and restraint alike. The world had felt his influence, and now that presence was slowly fading into the myths that sailors would tell for generations. Goku stepped lightly into the air, hovering for a moment as he glanced back at the crew. The smile never left his face, yet it carried a subtle sadness, an understanding that this world was not his home, but that his time here had mattered. Every life he touched, every heart he inspired, would carry a piece of him forward. "Be careful out there," he said quietly, almost to himself, as much as to the crew. "There will be challenges, stronger opponents, harder choices. But you've got what it takes." Luffy's fist clenched instinctively. "I'll get stronger," he promised, "and I'll find you, no matter where you are." Goku laughed, a sound both carefree and heavy with the gravity of his departure. "I'm counting on it," he said, before taking a deliberate step into the empty air, Kai swirling around him like a current of golden light. The sea below rippled and shined as he rose higher, a figure bathed in sunrise, gradually diminishing until he became a mere speck against the infinite sky. The Straw Hats stood in silence. Words felt small in the face of such a moment. Each of them understood, in their own way, that this was not just a goodbye. It was a passing of a torch, a challenge, a promise, a standard to live up to. Robin's voice broke the quiet. "He may be gone, but his influence remains. Every pirate, every revolutionary, every child hearing these stories will carry his lesson." Zoro's eyes softened slightly, his usual stoicism giving way to contemplation. Strength with restraint, power with principle. It's terrifying how simple it is, and yet how hard it is to live by. And then, as the sun fully rose, bathing the ocean in brilliant light, a subtle ripple appeared in the air where Goku had vanished. Not a return, not a warning, just a faint shimmer, a reminder that he had come from somewhere beyond comprehension, and that somewhere beyond the seas, his story continued. Luffy clenched his fists once more, eyes burning with determination. "I don't care how far you go, I'll find you. And when I do, we'll fight, we'll eat, we'll laugh. Somewhere beyond the sea. I'll see you again, Goku." And though the Saiyan was gone, his smile, the one that had carried hope, joy, and courage, lingered in their hearts. Across the seas, in every whispered tale, in every rumor of a warrior who fought without allegiance, the legend of Goku began to take root. Not all gods stay. Some pass through, and in their passing, they change everything. The waves carried his presence, even in absence. The grand line had been touched by a force beyond power, a force defined by heart, restraint, and the unyielding belief that strength without cruelty was possible. And somewhere, just beyond the horizon, a faint golden glow danced, a reminder that stories never truly end. They merely become myth, waiting for the next chapter to be written. The sea was quieter now, yet it hummed with possibility. Goku's journey continued, unseen yet deeply felt, leaving the world forever changed. The question that remained, whispered in the winds and across islands, was simple, yet profound. When a warrior like Goku passes through, who will rise to meet the standard he left behind?